William Morrow and HarperAudio present The Body in the Wardrobe, a Faith Fairchild mystery, by Katherine Hall Page, performed by Tanya Eby. A note before we begin. For delicious recipes, be sure to check out the accompanying enhancement PDF from your audiobook provider, or download directly from www.harpercollins.com/audio/The Body in the Wardrobe. All shall be done, but it may be harder than you think. C.S. Lewis, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. 1. When Sophie Maxwell became engaged to Will Tarkington Maxwell, the surname's a happy coincidence, she assumed she would be acquiring a number of new kin, but during her first visit to Savannah, Will's hometown, she was startled to discover she was soon to be related to roughly half the population of Georgia. Introductions such as, "My mother's cousin, Jack's sister-in-law," and "Aunt Nancy's son's second wife," spilled from Will's lips with bewildering speed at an equally bewildering number of gatherings. Savannians liked a party. Rather than even begin to try to remember everyone, Sophie smiled, and smiled again. She had met Will the previous summer in Sand Pier Island in Maine's Penobscot Bay. Will had accompanied his great-uncle, Paul McAllister, to Paul's late wife Priscilla's cottage, the Birches. Said cottage, more like those of a similar name in Bar Harbor and Newport. Priscilla had been Sophie's great-aunt. It was Paul's difficult job to decide which of his wife's nieces and nephews should inherit the valuable property. It was far from love at first sight for Sophie and Will. He assumed she was as money-grubbing and devious as the rest of the contenders. She found him arrogant and crude. They sniped at each other incessantly and, of course, fell madly in love. After Will saved Sophie from the clutches of a murderer, their troth was definitely plighted. And, having come through such danger, they didn't want to wait too long for their happily ever after. At the end of the summer, Will, a private investigator, had to return south to his practice. Sophie went from Sand Pier to her childhood home in Connecticut to plan the fall wedding. She'd grown up in a large, beautifully restored Victorian overlooking Long Island Sound. The restoration had been accomplished over many years, and many husbands, by her mother, Babs. Sophie thought her mother had finally found a keeper in Ed Harrington, who was a sweetheart. Since he played a great deal of golf in many locations, the marriage was succeeding. Babs liked her space, and was of the for better or worse, but not for lunch school. Sophie had assumed Babs would want a lavish wedding for her only child. Plus, Babs had a wealth of experience planning trips down the aisle to draw upon. Resolved to agree to whatever her mother wanted, mentally drawing a line, however, at the release of a flock of white doves, Sophie was surprised, when they sat down to talk, to find that her mother was proposing exactly what Sophie herself had envisioned. "Smallish," Babs had said, "about 100 total. And the ceremony outdoors with the double parlor's doors opened up to create an indoor room as backup. A best man for Will and some sort of maid or matron, really, these labels are so archaic, for you. Delicious food, that goes without saying, and plenty to drink. The reception and dancing in the barn. So glad we redid it for Ed's birthday party last year. And a Jenny Packham dress for you, love. Something pre-Raphaelite, but beat it. We can run over to London, choose, and they'll send a toile. Time is short, but they'll rise to the occasion." Sophie had shuddered at the last suggestion. Less than a year ago she had given up her corner office in a prestigious Manhattan law firm for what she mistakenly thought was the real thing, moving to London to be with her English beau. Babs had picked up on the reaction immediately. "Oh, darling, you can't rule out the UK forever just because of one rotten banger and the mash. No matter. Such fun to go to the bridal salon at Bergdorf's instead. My first and third." "It sounds perfect, Mother. Exactly what Will and I have talked about. We hoped the wedding could be at Sand Pier, but impossible at this time of year. Are you sure this is what you'll be happy with?"
Sample complete. Ready to continue?